Hey everyone, Dr. Frunke here with a fun comparison video. This is a comparison that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I mentioned it in the sort of initial encounter video with the Torrent over here. So these two knives are the Zero Tolerance 0392 BRN GLD and the Reate Knives Torrent. I have been a huge fan of this series of knives, as many of you know, and I have been looking at the Torrent for a long time because I see a lot of similarities between this knife and my favorite series of production knives. Just looking at the two knives on the table here, the similarities are very obvious. The overall size profile, the blade profile, the construction materials, and even the way that the knife is put together in terms of the screw layout, the size of the pivot, etc. So the comparisons there are easy to make. I've had some time now and been able to carry this knife and use it a little bit and get a little bit of experience with it, so I feel comfortable making some comparisons and talking about which of these two knives I might actually prefer at the end of the day. So we'll go ahead and start out with some specs here. On the 0392, we've got an overall length of 8.2 inches as compared to the Torrent that comes in at 8.5 inches. So the Torrent is a little bit bigger of a knife, and that's okay. This is a nice size for me. I have larger hands, a size 8 sterile glove, and so it works for me. The 0392 is pretty much perfect in my hand, and the Torrent is also pretty good. You can definitely tell that it's a little bit bigger in the handle overall. The handle length on the 0392 is 4.7, and this is 4.87 inches in the handle there. In terms of the blade length, you've got a 3.5 inch blade on the ZT, and you've got a 3.6 inch blade on the Torrent. So you're not really making a huge change there, but something that I've noticed is the actual cutting edge is about the same. So if we really get them right next to each other, the cutting edge is 3.3 ounces versus 3.375 ounces. So some of that extra blade length is lost by the fact that the Torrent has this much larger sharpening choil. And the Torrent really falls into that area where it's got a choil that's not really big enough to be a real finger choil, and it's more of an exaggerated sharpening choil, so you do lose a good amount of blade at the end there. However, I see that they did that on purpose so that the cutting edge is not in the path of the thumb stud. So that's a little bit of a functional thing. Unfortunately, I think that the Torrent loses out a little bit because of that. It's a bigger knife with the same exact cutting length, so you don't really get a lot of a benefit for that extra size. The blade thickness on the ZT is 0.16 inches, and it's 0.15 inches on the Torrent there. Let me see if I can get it to focus. So a little bit thinner blade stock on the Torrent, but they cut very similarly. They're both profiled almost exactly the same way with this triangular flat right here. They both have these Harpoon swedges up top and a nice sort of drop point style blade. It's really, really nice. Both of them are beautiful, beautiful examples of the Harpoon drop point. Really a fan of that. While we're talking about the blades, we can talk about the blade steels. The 0392 series came in 204p as well as M390. The Torrents came in just M390, which is awesome. So both of those blade steels are perfect. Two of the very best. Chemically, they're the same. On paper, they're exactly the same. In my experience, 204p has been spectacular. This one has been sitting with a 17 degree per side edge for well over a year now, has been used in all types of situations and hasn't chipped or broken or dulled in almost any perceivable way. And I imagine that M390 would largely be the same way. Now, this one has a much more aggressive cutting edge, so I'm not really going to be comparing the slicing ability in terms of the edge, but the overall cutting profile is very similar. These are flat ground blades with relatively thick stock, so they're not your ideal apple slicer, but they will do well with cutting paper, cardboard, cloth, or anything else. Just not maybe ideal for kitchen utility and food prep tasks. But I don't really use my folding knives for that a lot. I have kitchen knives for that kind of stuff, so not quite as important there. We can talk about the finishes going on here. Both have these machine satin finishes. You gotta love that. I'm a big fan of the machine satin finish, and I think they did it perfectly on here. I think that they also did it extremely, extremely well on the Torrent. The Torrent comes with this stone-washed flat, which is pretty nice. It is an extra touch of style there. It's an extra level of work that they've done. The 0392 series had different finishes going on there. Some of them were full DLC. You've seen that on here. I have the 0392 BLK. That one is actually off getting customized right now by Josh at Razor Edge Knives, and we'll be back soon. The main difference between these two knives is going to come in, besides the obvious visual differences in the colors. This one is typically just gray titanium when it's stock. This one has been customized by Tie Spectrum. But the main difference is going to come in the weight factor right there. So let me see if I can find my scale here. On paper, it says that the Torrent is actually an entire ounce heavier than the 0392, which is tough to believe because the 0392 is a pretty damn heavy knife. I'm having trouble finding my scale. Here it is. Okay, so we're going to bust this guy out here, see if we can get the raw numbers going on the screen. Sometimes it's hard to see. There we go. So I know that this is set in ounces right now. So right now with the extra brass over travel stop, this one is sitting at 5.89 ounces, and this Torrent is sitting at 6.04 ounces. So I'm not really sure why. Maybe I misread that. So they're about the same weight right here. So you got to understand here, these are very, very, very similar knives in a lot of different ways. What it comes down to is going to be your personal preference. The price point is also remarkably similar. This particular 0392 was $425, but the series ranged anywhere from $400 to $450. This one came in at $375. I think you're getting that benefit of having the Chinese manufacturing on your side there. Let's talk about the action. So this 0392 is just buttery smooth. It feels almost hydraulic in the way that it opens and closes. Really, I don't have any other knives that have this kind of an action. It's absolutely amazing. Now, the Torrent is also really nice. It's super smooth. I have nothing to complain about. It just feels a little bit more hollow, and that is because these titanium scales have been aggressively milled out on the inside. Let's see if I can get this to focus on that. At least on this front side, you might be able to tell it has been aggressively milled out, but it still ends up being heavier than its American counterpart right here. In terms of the overall feel in the hand, I must say that the 0392 wins that battle. The ergonomics on this knife are incredible. The way that it just fits the hand, the finger cutouts are perfect, the length is excellent, and this finger rest right here where your thumb just sits on that little ramp with that little bit of jimping is super nice. On this knife, it's a little bit wider in the handle. I don't feel like I have the same kind of aggressive grip. I don't have the same amount of grip. The jimping up here is pretty much useless. It might as well just be smooth right there. That's not really stopping anybody's thumb from moving. And it's a little bit taller, so it doesn't really afford the same kind of exacting grip. It's a little bit wider, but some people's hands might prefer this. My hands don't necessarily prefer this. It doesn't have this. It does have a very comfortable handle. My fingers fit perfectly here and there, and it does work very well. I think aesthetically, in terms of the handles, this one has this lanyard hole in the back. I think these built-in lanyard holes really detract from the overall look of the knife. I prefer it to not have them at all. So the point there in terms of the aesthetics, go to the 0392 again, and the handle ergonomics. So I think the last thing that I really wanted to talk about is the sort of overall package that you're getting. So this is a Chinese knife that costs $375 and honestly offers no significant advantage over this American-made ZT. I prefer the looks, I prefer the ergos, and I prefer the way that this knife feels. You really have to have both of these knives in hand to understand how it feels. Now, the one thing that the Reate has over the ZT is the opening. So you can open this with the thumb studs, you can open it with a spider flick, and so that does allow a little bit more fun in terms of having the Reate. So depending on what you're looking for, one of these two knives might be your preference, but I'm going to choose the 0392 all day, every day. So I appreciate you guys watching this video. I hope maybe it was a little bit informative in terms of these knives that I love, and thanks for watching, guys. Take care.